One summer after my sophomore year of college, I was working on an organic farm in Switzerland. But the farm was in this really remote area, so every few days I had to go to the closest town to run errands. But I didn't have a car or anything, so I would hitch rides. And even though hitchhiking is usually a pretty sketchy thing to do as a single woman in a foreign country, I normally felt pretty safe, except for this one time. I was on my way back to the farm and I hitched a ride on a motorcycle. And then this other guy on a motorcycle came up next to us and was trying to tell me something. And it's super windy, obviously, so I can't hear anything. And we were going like 40 miles per hour on these tiny roads. He's holding a necklace in his other hand that he's like dangling around. I'm like, no, I don't want the necklace. I don't have any cash on me. But he kept following us and trying to sell it. So finally we get to the spot where I'm supposed to be dropped off. And this guy's been following us for like 30 minutes. And from the place where I'm dropped off, it's still a 10-minute walk to the farm. And the sun is setting, it's getting dark. So I start walking, and this guy keeps following me, and I start to get this really bad.
If you're ever driving late at night, don't do what they did. One night, a boy and his friend were on their way to a school dance when they saw a girl on the side of the road looking lost. They stopped the car and asked if she needed a ride, and she asked them to take her home. They said that they were going to a school dance and asked if she wanted to come too. She agreed. But these boys wouldn't know yet that this girl was not an average hitchhiker. So they all got in the car and the girl sat in the back seat. After a while, the girl would constantly say that she was cold, so one of the boys gave her his jacket. They got to the dance and things were pretty normal, but what happened after would make the boys question reality. When the night was almost over, it was finally time to take the girl home. When they almost arrived, the girl told them where she lived, but told them to drop her off close by so she can walk the rest of the way. So that's what they did. But after the girl walked away, the boy who let her borrow his jacket realized that he never asked for his jacket back. His friend said that they could just come back tomorrow for it. The next morning, they came back expecting to get the jacket and leave, but things were not so simple. They came up to the girl's house and knocked on the door, but they were shocked at what they discovered as soon as the door opened. Follow for part 2.
This girl who used to bully the shit out of me DM'd me on Instagram. We are going to call her Emma. Emma DMs me and she's like, hey, we should meet up at Starbucks. I want to catch up. I want to tell you stuff. My dumbass was like, okay, let's do it. But the day comes when we're meeting up. So obviously I took an Uber there. I was gonna be a little late, so I called Emma and I was like, hey, my Uber's taking long. Can you please get my drink so we can talk more and I'll pay you back? And so she said she would, so it was cool. I get to Starbucks. So me and Emma are drinking our drink and then I start feeling very sick to the point where I was fainting and throwing up really bad. So I went to the bathroom and this lady followed me into the bathroom and told me that the girl that I was with, Emma, put a pill in my drink and I was gonna go confront Emma about it, and by the time I went back, she had ran away. So I ended up calling an Uber to go home because I was not feeling well at all. Like I was dying. The Uber comes and guess who is in the Uber? Emma! She locks the doors.
Has anyone ever told you not to do something and that just made you want to do it more? For these 3 girls, their curiosity would lead to something terrifying. These girls went to high school together and one night they decided to have a sleepover. They were also fans of horror movies, so they thought it would be nice to rent one out and watch it. They eventually found a video rental store on the street corner and went inside. They would soon regret this decision. They asked a woman behind the counter if she had any suggestions for horror movies that they could watch. The woman said she had the perfect movie for them and went into the back room. Then one of the girls noticed that an old and rusted videotape was lying on the counter. She picked it up and was instantly curious, but things got intense when the woman came back. She slammed her hands down on the old videotape and pulled it away. She said, that's not something you should be watching. The woman wouldn't say anything else, only that it was a home movie. Then she handed them a regular horror movie. The girls agreed to rent that one out instead, but one of the girls was still too curious. She wanted to know what was in that old tape, so when the woman wasn't looking, she put it in her purse and left with it. When the girls came home, they decided to watch the old tape together, but what they saw on there would both shock and terrify them.
I'm gonna be telling you a true scary childhood story. On the backside of my house, we had an old tornado shelter. Nobody had ever been in it because when we moved in, the realtor told us not to go down there because there was a lot of mold. But because I was a child who loved to explore things, and I was also not scared to get in trouble, I decided one day that me and my neighbor were gonna go down into the tornado shelter. When we finally got the tornado shelter open, my neighbor was way too scared to go down. So I decided to take one for the team and go down there. Because I had a huge imagination as a child, I thought that when I would go down there, I'd find something super cool that would give me superpowers. But instead of finding something super cool, the room was empty. Until I looked into the corner and I saw a little boy sitting there. He was just staring at me. I got so scared, so I ran up the stairs and ran into my house. I told my parents and they went down there and he wasn't there. He just vanished. Stay tuned for part 2.
So one day, this random guy added me on Snapchat.
I added him just because
just because you really never know. It could be my soulmate or something. Like, you know, we're gonna call him motherfucking Larry. So right when I added Larry, he sent me a snap. Oh, this is the best part. Just wait, sweetie. So it was a photo of a wall with pictures of me, baby pictures of me, even a picture of my cat with like tiny post-its all around it. And in the caption, he was like, I manifested you, you cannot leave anymore. I was kind of scared, so I blocked him. And I remember I left to my grandma's house because I was just really scared to even be in my own house. And so the next morning of me staying at my grandma's house, we got mailed this like big box with like confetti in it. And there was this envelope, and I remember the envelope was like, hey, it's Larry. I told you you cannot leave. And my family's number was there, our address was there.
This is why you should never Google yourself.
Some of us might have done it once or twice, but for Honora Petrova, one simple search led to horrifying consequences. Honora had always wanted to be an ice skater. She was young, talented, successful, and had a famous trainer. The night before her first big championship win, she felt more anxious than usual. For fun, she Googled herself and came across a Wikipedia page saying that she would win. When she did win, Honora thought this must be a coincidence. But every time after that, the page would predict whether she won or lost. She checked it every single time, almost addicted to refreshing that site. When she was about to compete in another huge competition, she decided to manipulate the website by changing the outcome it predicted. But instead, it said, Honora Petrova is going to get what she deserves. Right after, she was accused of sabotaging another girl's skates, which ended up slicing her in the forehead. Even though Honora denied it, she was banned from the competition and was dropped by her trainer. She thought this must be the worst of it until she checked the website the next day and saw a terrifying message about her. Follow for part 2 of the story.
So as a kid, me and my family would go to the beach like almost every day, and there was always this creepy old man just sitting down. So one day, the creepy old man called me little girl in a pink shirt, and I would always go talk to him, but one day it all changed when he randomly called me by my name. This is a fake name I'm using, Layla. And I looked at him with fear in my eyes because I never told him my name. I walked up to him and said yes. He looked at me and said, let's go for a walk. By the way, my parents look at him as an old man that was enjoying his retirement. So we go for a walk and he says, so Layla, how is it back at home? I tell him good. Then he started asking me weird questions, like the school I went to, my address, all type of weird things. So I responded with I don't know. Then my parents started to call my name because they were looking for me. So the creepy old man let me go before I started to walk. I asked him what his name was, and he gives me his fake name. This is the fake name the sender is using, Bob Lakewood.
This is why you should never reply to a stranger's email. John got an email from 2 girls claiming to be his sisters, even though he was an only child. What's even stranger is that these girls claimed that they were murdered in his house. They were found skinned in the closet. When the investigation failed and no one was found responsible, the parents decided to move on with a new baby. That baby was John, who grew up without knowing anything about his sisters. That's what the emails claimed anyways. John replied to this email saying that he didn't believe them, but that was his fatal mistake. Minutes later, he got another email. It said, if you don't believe us, look in the closet. The next morning, John was gone. His parents called the police, who found the emails on his laptop and the closet door slightly open. Then they saw what would shock them. They found John in his closet, also skinned alive. Nowhere in the house was there any sign of an intruder. Then when they looked closer, they found something else. A row of faint writing on the wall that read Lisa and Sarah, 1993. Then just below it, freshly carved into the wood, John, 2007.
Story time on how I found my daughter without even looking for her. When I was 15, I got pregnant by who I thought was the love of my life. But as soon as he found out that I was pregnant, he said he didn't want anything to do about it, and that if I wanted, I could get an abortion. I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking about it. I decided to tell my mom. I was scared at first, but then I remembered my mom and I had a really good relationship. And she told me I had 3 options. I could have the baby, I could have an abortion, or I could have the baby and give it up for adoption. I decided to have the baby, which later on I found out it was a girl, and then give her up for adoption because I wasn't going to be able to give her the life that she deserved. And I said that maybe in the future, I would look for her, explain to her what happened, and tell her that I can be a part of her life if she wanted me to. Well, in 2015, I was able to open my own little coffee shop, where I hired 3 employees. By that time, I was married and had 2 wonderful toddlers. Well, from the 3 employees that I hired, one of them was my daughter, but I didn't know it at the time. Running out of time, follow me for part 2.
One summer after my sophomore year of college, I was working on an organic farm in Switzerland. But the farm was in this really remote area, so every few days I had to go to the closest town to run errands. But I didn't have a car or anything, so I would hitch rides. And even though hitchhiking is usually a pretty sketchy thing to do as a single woman in a foreign country, I normally felt pretty safe, except for this one time. I was on my way back to the farm and I hitched a ride on a motorcycle. And then this other guy on a motorcycle came up next to us and was trying to tell me something. And it's super windy, obviously, so I can't hear anything. And we were going like 40 miles per hour on these tiny roads. He's holding a necklace in his other hand that he's like dangling around. I'm like, no, I don't want the necklace. I don't have any cash on me. But he kept following us and trying to sell it. So finally we get to the spot where I'm supposed to be dropped off. And this guy had been following us for like 30 minutes. And from the place where I'm dropped off, it's still a 10-minute walk to the farm. When the sun is setting, it's getting dark. So I start walking, and this guy keeps following me, and I start to get this really bad